नहीं तो आपको बताना था, इसलिए बोल रहा हूँ।
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. So, welcome to the third session and the last session of the day. The topic for this session is ANSYS simulation solutions for development of lab-on-chip devices. We have the speaker with us, Mr. Ishan Vyas. He is the regional technical manager in the CADFM India Private Limited. Ishan Vyas has dealt with many positions on the uh, in his job in CADFM India Private Limited. He has played various roles like as application engineer, business development manager, regional technical manager. He has done projects in a lot of areas like optimization of deflector angle for transfer tube using DEM, minimizing linear wear in sag mill using DEM, predicting blend uniformity in the octagonal blender for drug formulation. So he has a keen interest in modeling and all the simulations of the different microfluidic devices and the lab on chip devices on the ANSYS. So today he will share something about how various parameters can be simulated on the ANSYS software for the lab on chip devices and for the microfluidic devices. So we welcome you, sir. I think you can hear me and you are online now. So over to you, sir. You can start your presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Utkarsh sir, for that introduction. And uh, good afternoon, everyone. And as Utkarsh sir said, I'm Ishan Vyas from CADFM India. and this is today's topic, ANSYS simulation solutions for development of lab-on-chip devices, right? So I will be covering the development scenario or simulations which we can do from the CFD perspective on lab-on-chip devices. But there can be many other simulations also which we can do for lab-on-chip devices and other medical equipments, medical devices, which we usually either develop or research on, right? So starting with, I'm going to give an overview of how ANSYS has been used by others in the industry or in the academia to develop and test medical devices, right? So if I talk about, there are certain business initiatives which, at least from the industry front, which people have been focusing on. In terms of medical devices, there is personalized and mobile healthcare, which people are moving into. Like uh, a very simple example or a very crude example could be just a smartwatch, which is measuring your heart rate, right? So we start from there, but we go a long way into making more complex healthcare devices also personalized and mobile. Then predictive and preventive maintenance. So like I'm not sure if, uh, if we are aware, but there are predictive and preventive medicine also which are being developed based on some data which we collect from human body as using certain sensors, right? So that is one of the key focus areas, outcome based medicine, so that you know you you are where people are paying or people are looking at a medicine or a treatment based on if it will solve the current problem or not, and reducing the cost and time for regulatory approvals is also a major focus area. Then even from the medical supplies and hospital equipment, there is a augmented reality for medical imaging, which is being one of the areas of affordability and profitability, because hospital equipments take a very huge capital investment. Portable and remote diagnosis and non-industrialized countries as well should be able to use these kind of hospital equipments. Then in terms of pharma and biopharma, there is a focus on accelerating the drug approval process, because that in most cases becomes a deciding factor of who which drug goes into the market first, and the right dose for the right patient at the right time, um, which we want to also achieve. Then from the physiological and clinical perspective, there is medical digital twin people are working on, where uh, based on the data, as I already told, acquired by the sensors which are actually planted in our body, we can create a digital twin. That means like a similar, like we have in the physical scenario, a virtual uh, avatar of our whole body can be created using a digital twin. Maybe we are not exactly there and we can create a exact replica of our body right now in the virtual environment, but a lot of progress has been made there as well. Then there is predictive medicine, accelerated patient recovery, and minimizing post-surgery treatment as well. So, and there is definitely there are some disruptive innovations which have been happening for let's say the past decade, and those will definitely trickle down to medical or healthcare industry as well, like electronification, right? So uh, we were using, let's say, a more rudimentary on conventional batteries till now, but now we are making our batteries more efficient, smaller, right? And with that, it also comes to a picture that we want to manage that batteries and energy properly. Then wireless charging systems we have already hearing about in the phones, right? So that is going to also can is an innovation, can also trickle down to the medical industry. Software safety, because we are looking at things which are connected to each other. Let's say again the example of a smartwatch, it is connected to the internet, it is connected to your phone. So there is another layer of software safety which we need for these equipments as well. And as we move to more technologically advanced equipments being embedded into the body, or wore on the body, like starting from a smart band to certain implants which can go inside our skin and measure, let's say, the blood oxygen level, just for an example. So the SAR compliance will also be something which we'll have to look at. Then there is advanced materials and manufacturing techniques which have been developed. We can create personalized equipments because now we have additive manufacturing, which is uh, breaking the barriers of things where we could only produce in mass numbers, right? Let's say if we are making a stent, right? Maybe a stent will be a wrong example here, but let's say anything which goes into, let's say, for an example, as simple as a kneecap, right? A kneecap can be personalized also for a particular patient, right? Then weight reduction, again, because we are getting into advanced materials, uh, we are innovating, or we are getting into new materials every day. So the same materials which, let's say, we might be using 5 years ago, we might be having some new material which has the same strength but a reduced weight, right? Then part reduction, so that we are creating single body equipments, right? Again, with the help of additive manufacturing. So we don't have to create a lot of joints or a lot of parts when we are making a whole assembly, right? And then on demand in situ manufacturing as well, right? Again, powered by additive manufacturing. Then autonomous system, right? So there is this concept of P4 medicine also, participatory, personalized, predictive, and preventive medicines, where people have been working, and e-health and m-health, which has become um, uh, another buzzword, right? And AI-driven medical devices as well, so that the devices can learn, the devices can understand a particular patient's anatomy and then work on it. Like even robotic surgery, we have seen that it has progressed a lot in the last 10 years. Okay, so then the connected patient as well, like medical digital twin, which I already talked about, in connected and mobile health. So these are few innovations which have been done in, let's say, the past decade or two, which will or which are already being used in the medical industry uh, to to make new products or better products, right? So um, so we already have this technology, we already have some requirements, but there are some challenges which already exists, right? So there are challenges from the political, economical, social, technological, legal, environmental, and competition perspective, right? I'm not going to go and read all the challenges which exist, but we understand, right, that there are these challenges which exist, and uh, um so, but there can be certain solutions, like reconcile GDP cost burden with patient safety when it comes to economics, affordability and profitability for industrialized and emerging markets. Then for social, aging populations is there, data privacy is one of the concerns, connectivity is there, and rare diseases which we have to detect, right? So there can be AI driven medical devices, there can be a e uh, devices which can detect certain diseases, but if it is a rare disease, then maybe it is a difficult one. Then technology, where we are talking about personalization, advanced materials, and additive manufacturing, as I told you. There can be, from the legal front, guaranteed patient safety through regulatory approvals. From an environmental perspective, direct and indirect emissions due to energy and water consumption will be our challenge. And from competition, like there will be people who will disrupt or create innovative products um, to to change the scenario in any of the industries, right? So this was just what what opportunities we have, what technologies are there, which might trickle down to the medical industry, right? And now let's see what is the role and value of simulation and how ANSYS has been helping the healthcare and the medical equipment industry, right? So, uh, so whenever we have certain challenges in any product development, so there is the whole life cycle approach which we follow. So we start with there is an ideation stage, then there is a design stage, then there is a manufacturing operation and in product, right? So ANSYS can help in all these areas, starting from ideation all the way to in product performance and troubleshooting, right? So so what simulation basically does it that it converts the data into insight and delivers. So whatever data you are collecting, either at ideation state, design, manufacturing, operation, or in product stage, that it converts it into insights and then help us deliver accelerated new product insertion, right? Because we can understand, like whenever we are making, let's say, a new medical equipment, or let's say even something as a new design for a catheter, right? A new catheter design, if we have to do a physical prototyping and testing, first it requires cost of developing that physical prototype. Second, testing facilities and testing might be expensive and time consuming. But on the other hand, if we create a virtual uh, if we create a virtual prototype of the catheter and test it using simulation softwares, that cut down the time for which on the time which we are spending on the product development test and testing, right? There can be operational improvements in terms of, let's say, if we have certain bioreactors, or we have any manufacturing process, right? So in those cases, again, when we do a virtual testing or virtual troubleshooting, we can innovate more. Like, let's say I would want to test my bioreactor works okay when I am the mass flow rate of, let's say, the oxygen which I am uh, um, sparging into this bioreactor is, let's say, X LPM. Now, if I increase it to 2x or 3x, how is it going to react, right? So we can do that in testing also, but sometimes we have some certain constraints, but those constraints do not exist when you're doing the same tests in virtual environment, right? So then closer and deeper customer patient relationships is what we are also targeting, because we are hoping for developing patient specific medical equipment, and also predictive and prescriptive maintenance and treatment, as I already talked about. And as we are collecting more data, it can also lead to new revenue streams for the industry, right? So this was a study done by McKinsey and Company on how advanced analytics can benefit infrastructure capital planning in April 2018. So, when we talk about ANSYS simulation, it delivers the highest level of competitive advantage in this area. So, wherever we are going to a more analytics team effort, where we are at the higher stage, where there is advanced analytics, which is predictive analytics or optimization and simulation modeling, which you see at point number 11, that is where we get the highest competitive advantage on 11, 10, 11, or 12 level, right? So that is where ANSYS lots adds a lot of value. So if we talk about the regulatory approval process also for medical devices, so there are certain criterias or compliances, or let's say documents which even FDA has been working on to include simulation driven product development also into the regulatory process, right? So your simulation results will, let's say, we are still going towards this. Uh, there are certain provisions already which exist from the FDA side, but but it is going to only grow as we go ahead in time, right? So so first case, if you can see, This is from where hearing aid was being developed, and they wanted to refine the antenna design. Okay, so they were able to design months of testing time and tens and thousands of dollars in resources for each project design, because they were using virtual prototypes instead of physical prototypes. Again, in this leadless pacemakers, okay, in Medtronic, they released their new pacemakers in 2 years in advance. So they were able to uh, cut down their product development time by 2 years. So that's again a big achievement, and you can actually see the whole summary here as well by our China Alliance, which is there. And I will share this PPT so you can go through the whole document and understand how this was achieved, right? And it actually also saved them around $10 million in regulatory approvals. And if I talk about orthopedic implant MRI capability, so there is again an in silico approach, which is basically doing anything inside computer, right? In silico comes after in vivo or in vitro approaches, right? Uh, uh, so FDA has accepted even in silico approach to demonstrate MRI capability of orthopedic implants, and the same is also presented in this webinar here. So I will be sharing this slide, and you can also go through this webinar to understand more on this. So apart from the regulatory perspective, as I said already, we are cutting time to market and delivering the right dose to the right patient. Right? So if I talk about drug manufacturing from a lyophilization perspective, so there has been seen a 99% time saving. So this comes from Biogen, which had reduced the technology transfer from month to barely 30 minutes while collecting a lot more data, right? And then 90% drug delivery accuracy. So this again, this is a chemotherapeutic drug which they were delivering, and there were so earlier aerosol method, conventional aerosol method had a 20% accuracy, and the new method which they also developed using uh, virtual prototyping, it increased the accuracy to 90%, right? And again, the regulatory approval, this is from Fluida, where they again used in silico approach and reduced and they reduced the development time by years in their case. And in bioreactor efficacy also, as I was talking, so by an optimized bioreactor design, they were able to colonize the bioreactor completely in 13 days rather than 22 days, which earlier used to take, right? So these are a few advantages which we can take. And uh, even from a digital twin simplified for surgeries, right? So that is also where we are working, like for surgery for nasal obstructions. Um, so for rhinology, where people have been working on CFD domain and radically changing the surgery of nose, sinuses, and airways, because before we go into a surgery, we are able to understand, what kind of challenges which we can face, and if the what kind of obstruction it is, right, by creating a virtual prototype, right? And similarly, I will not go into the details of all this, and eyes laser treatment, brain surgery, and newborn hearts as well. So there are a lot of things which people have been using ANSYS for in the healthcare domain as well, right? So as I was earlier also mentioning, that we start from the ideation stage as well, implementing ANSYS from the ideation stage itself. Okay, so mm, so from a discovery perspective, it saves months of testing, as I've already mentioned. From design perspective, also Medtronic again released their new pacemaker in 2 years in advance, as I told you. And from manufacturing perspective, we have already talked about, and also the in product perspective, right? So this is just uh, 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 a list of some of the industry people who have been using ANSYS for their product development. And we actually ourselves work with Novartis India here, Cipla, and other pharma companies as well. Right? And it has also been adopted well by startups and academic facilities as well. So around 600 plus startups have enrolled in the ANSYS startup program, which are working in the medical equipment or medical devices domain, or the healthcare domain. And in India as well, we have people like RCH Orthopedic who have been working on this. Then 3,200 academic facilities have also been started implementing ANSYS for their research work in 87 countries. 84 of the top 100 institutes have been already using. Then then there are certain areas which we already talked about, even where people have been using ANSYS, right? So I will be sharing this slide as well, and you can go through these examples. So these are a few dedicated examples based on certain simulations which people have done. Um like this comes from Admedis, where from Germany. So using ANSYS software, they were able to accurately do a fluid solid structure interaction. So whenever we are manufacturing a stent, right, and which is going to interact with the blood inside our vessels. So that is going to the fluid flow or the blood flow is going to expand and contract or maybe interact with this stent. So we need to understand what is the effect of blood flow on this solid structure, right? So that is where structure interaction simulation comes into play, and they were able to predict the performance of the stent, including stent crimping and release against the aortic wall, right? So these are some multiphysics simulation as well, and that is where ANSYS also stands out, where we 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 can do a multiphysics simulation in a single window, because if you talk about CFD stands for computational fluid dynamics, and FEA is also another domain which I think my colleague Aslam also gave a lecture on the first day, right, from the FEA perspective. So these two can be clubbed together to understand how let's say a stent would behave in the human body, right? Now we have also seen that computer models improve clinical trial efficiency and regulatory evidence, right? So there has been reduction in the number of patients involved in the clinical trial for certain areas. Then cost reduction due to reduced number of patients, because and reduced number of patients which will be involved in the clinical trials, because these clinical trials definitely are very expensive to conduct. And as I told you that the product life cycle has been reduced, and the number of patients treated during these 2 years were around 10,000. This is also published in Avicenna Alliance, and that paper can be found as well, right? So this again comes from this was done by CADFEM Medical. So I'm not sure if I mentioned, but CADFEM has also been working on uh, dedicatedly on the medical or healthcare industry. And as a result of that, we have developed a separate wing which focuses specifically on the medical industry called CADFEM Medical. And that is why you see a lot of case studies also coming from us. So, right, in this case, simulation gives doctors the luxury of knowing what we will experience during the surgery. Okay, so they can be better prepared for surgical treatment. Now, till now we have talked about, okay, maybe the CFD or the FEA domain, but even from electromagnetics, where in this case we call it high frequency simulations, right? So any equipment which it can be wireless, it can be wired, it will have certain antennas, certain electronic components inside it, right? So these devices, they are going to interact with devices around us. A very simple example can be, let's say, if you have, let's say, a set of speakers in your home, and you have your phone kept very close to it. And if somebody calls you, there will be an interference with that, and you will hear some static coming from your speakers, right? So those kind of interaction between different electronic equipments, okay, it's okay. We are not very worried if, let's say my phone interacts with my speaker. But if, let's say, I have something implanted inside me, like a medical device, and that interacts with something else which is outside, so that can be really, worrisome. So in these areas as well, uh, they can, in case of medical, reliable wireless medical devices, right? We can optimize the design of implanted device antennas, right? So you can see that this is a design of an antenna which was done. So we can understand what frequencies will it work on, will it have any EMI/EMC effect when it is implanted or when it is in working condition, right? So uh, even from a patient safety perspective, right? So this particular company invested significantly in latest simulation technologies. So they could understand if the implanted MFM stem, what will be the effect of that on blood flow, velocity, wall shear stress, and hence basically patient safety. So because we can model any type of fluid in a computational fluid dynamics domain, we will be able to model blood flow as well. And since we are capable of modeling different materials for structures, we will be able to model uh, the elastic plastic nature of our blood vessels as well. Right? Now, again, coming back to an electromagnetic simulation, right? So we can also see this comes from a company called Chemring Technology Solutions. So they ran some simulations in ANSYS HFSS, which is a high frequency tool in the electromagnetic domain. Uh, what will be, the electromagnetic surface which will be propagate around the body, and uh, uh, and also understood what can be the right way of producing high bandwidth uh, waves which are safe or secure for our bodies and does not affect our bodies, right? And this is a very, you know uh, simple example, because they used the very beginner level tool which ANSYS has to increase innovation while reducing time to market. So they had to make a lot of changes in their medical equipment, right? So they incorporated in ANSYS simulations in their design process, and they were able to identify weak or over designed areas in their equipment using ANSYS discovery. And digital twin for abdominal aortic growth as well. So, right, so this also is a very difficult simulation which we have to perform, because we have to take care of the blood flow. Blood flow properties might change depending on the patient, and we had to use advanced meshing techniques also to mesh this whole area, which is going to be a complex geometry, right? And even for medical devices, let's say, which are implanted already inside our body, and they have to be recharged, let's say, using wireless technology. So this comes from a company called Medtronic, and they determined that ANSYS Maxwell provides a fast and relatively simple method of measuring 10 gram to 1 gram peak spatially averaged SAR values. Okay, there are certain regulations by FCC regulations which have to be done for the recharging devices. Right. So again, Auticon also similarly gain advantage from using ANSYS simulations, right? So I'm going to skim through these slides because I understand we have a limited time, right? So I'm going to share these slides with you also, so you can go through these examples and understand the idea behind giving these examples was like wherever we are working on the research areas which we are working on, we can pick and choose and understand how ANSYS can help us, right, in those areas. So I'm going to just go, pass through these slides. Now, I'm going to go into the topic of lab-on-chip devices. So when we talk about lab-on-chip devices from a CFD perspective, we will be mostly looking into the microfluidics application on that, because a lab-on-chip device will use microfluidics very extensively, because it's a small device, and we are using very small volumes of, let's say, the sample, or any reagent or any analyte which we are using, right? So if it comes to microfluidics technologies, the broad applications would be biological and chemical agent detection in biodefense, drug discovery, high throughput screening, right? Point of care diagnostics, which is where, let's say, lab on chip devices will also come into picture. DNA sequences, drug delivery, inkjet printing, and fuel cells. Right? So we'll be focusing on point of care diagnostics. So let's understand, why do we actually also use microfluidics. So the basic advantage would be that the sample volumes are really small, right? We only might need sometimes even less than an ml of sample, right? Or very, very small volumes of samples to be used. Decreased analysis times as well, right? Because that is where it comes into picture, where on the spot we want to test something, right? So that is where a decreased analysis times come. And readily automated, because it is not a very big device. So automation for lab on chip devices is also very quickly done, because there are small motors which we have to put in, and less number of heavier structures to be handled. Then definitely microfluidics application, wherever we look at it, will be a portable device, and low material cost will also be an added advantage. But there definitely will be some challenges as well. Challenges in terms of we will have to minimize the dispersion which is happening in the microfluidics channels, then enhance mixing. So because if we understand, whenever a flow is in a micro channel, right, it is going to be, it is difficult to make it turbulent. It is going to be, in most cases or almost all cases, it is going to be laminar, right? And uh, mixing occurs because of turbulence, right? If it is a laminar flow, there will not be any mixing, any significant mixing which we'll observe. So that is why ideally we would want to enhance mixing in a microfluidics channel. That is one of the challenges as well. Then integration and packaging of these devices, because these can be very sensitive, right? Because we are operating in, like, we have microfluidics channel, and then that basically can, if there is even a small damage, then it can make the whole equipment go haywire, right? So there are different ways in which the transport of, let's say, a sample, or anything which we put into a microfluidic or a lab on chip devices can happen. So the first is electrohydrodynamics. Okay, so where there will be a small electric field that reduces the motion of charged particles. Okay, and these are basically intertwined. The electric field basically is coupled to the fluid flow and heat transfer as well. So there are certain processes which we can see in this case, like electrophoresis, electro osmosis, and isotachophoresis, piezoelectric pumping, and electrowetting. Right. Then there is neutral hydrodynamics, which is flow driven by pressure, surface tension, on centrifugal forces. So that is also something that is another transport mechanism which we look into when we are talking about microfluidics devices. So I will very quickly maybe cover governing equation for the microfluidics devices of transport equation for electrophoresis. Boundary conditions which we use for electroosmosis and effect of varying zeta potential. The effect of geometry on microfluidics flow, how we can achieve dispensing based on our requirement, and pre-concentration and mixing. So there are various boundary conditions which we use. So if I have to talk a little about boundary conditions, right? So whenever we are doing a physical experiment, right? So let's say I'm taking a very simple example. You imagine a pipe, right? So I am flowing some water through a pipe, okay? And I just, let's say I open a tap and the water enters the pipe, right? And I want to see what is the velocity when the water exits this pipe. So in a physical environment, you just had to have a velocity sensor, let's say at the end of the pipe, to understand what is the velocity of the water at the end of the pipe, and maybe a mass flow rate meter at the end of the tap where the water is entering into the pipe, to understand what is the mass flow rate there. So as a function of mass flow rate, you can determine what is the velocity, right? Just a simple physical experiment. But in case of a virtual experiment or a virtual testing, or whatever you want to call it, you will have to specify certain boundary conditions. So two boundaries here in this example which I'm taking is, one is at the tap entrance, like the inlet of the pipe where the water is entering through the tap, and there is an outlet which is at the end of the pipe where we have the velocity being measured. So the boundary conditions which we would apply here in this simple experiment is, we would give the mass flow rate of the water at the inlet as, let's say, an input, and at the outlet we will say that okay, it is open to atmosphere, right? At the end of the pipe there is just vast open atmosphere. So that is something which can be our boundary conditions. So similarly, for any equipment, any testing, any type of simulation we do, we are going to specify boundary conditions. So in this case, let's say there are Dirichlet, Neumann, and Robin kind of boundary conditions. So these all define how the concentration of an analyte or any solute will be defined, right? So let's say in a Newman condition. Yes,
Sir, Utkarsh here. Sir, you are talking about this. Can I ask question in between if you are?
yes, definitely.
Sir, you are talking about this boundary condition. So you have said that one of the outlet will be considered in the atmosphere. Fine. So if the inlet and outlet both are fixed and defined, so how we can consider the boundary for it? Say, for example, we have the 2 mm of the inlet and outlet is of 4 mm, and we have in between one single channel. Fine. So
Mhm.
how we can define boundary in that condition?
Okay, understood. So what will happen is, let's say, let me use So let's say this is my pipe. Okay, just a second. Okay, this is my. Let's say this is my pipe. Okay, you said that one inlet is actually, let's say this is 2 mm, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
And this is, let's say, 4 mm.
And again, it is not open. Consider it as a closed one.
Okay, these are closed boundaries.
Yes, closed boundaries as well. It is in the circular form, not this, not like this. It is circular form.
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay, understood. Yes, understood. This is just like a 2D representation, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it depends on your problem, sir. Like it depends, let's say, if in some cases, if you want to do a flow simulation, maybe it is not possible here because you don't have anywhere for the fluid to go. But let's say if this pipe is being heated from the bottom, let's say I supply some heat from the bottom, okay, and there is a natural convection which is happening, that the water near the walls will get heated up and it is going to go, its density is going to decrease and it is going to go to the top, and cold water is going to come down, and this cycle is going to repeat. So this kind of simulation, maybe then I will do, then my boundary conditions will change. I will supply a heat flux here at this location, right? This whole wall, like the cylindrical wall, will become like a heat flux region for me, right? And I will say that, let's say this wall has certain convection properties, or it is an adiabatic wall, right? So depending on my experiment, depending on the test which I am performing, that is where I will decide what kind of boundary conditions which I want to use.
Okay, sir. Okay. And can we design the channels and the inlet and outlet in the ANSYS, or we have to import the design from the other software like AutoCAD or something like that?
So there is a provision of designing it inside ANSYS as well. So ANSYS has a designing tool as well.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you. Okay.
Anything else, sir?
No, no, you can continue, sir.
Okay. So again, uh, let's talk about electrophoresis. Electrophoresis is basically a motion of ions due to voltage gradient, right? Uh, so there will be an analyte which will be there, but there will be the 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 concentration of that analyte is going to be very less as compared to the buffer ions. Okay. So what that means is that the conductivity of the whole solution will be independent of our analyte concentration. Um so in case of whenever we are using electrophoresis or electrophoretic forces for sorry for moving any fluid from point A to point B. So the velocity of small uh, of small volumes is defined by this particular equation, right? Where you have your voltage gradient in picture, you have your radius, right, and the charge on that particular molecule, right? And you will have Stokes radius of the molecules, which will be determined also for that particular. So this is what works in the background, right? And if I talk about electro-osmotic flows, so these are driven by motion of ions within the diffuse layer, right? So and there, so ions will be moving and they will impart basically the momentum to the interior fluid. Okay, so we know, right, that whenever a fluid or any a fluid is in motion, it will apply a viscous drag to the layers which are connected to it, right? So that is basically going to create a plug flow profile in the flow channel, right? And the velocity in this case is basically dependent on the zeta potential. Okay. Then then because in, let's say, in a lab on chip devices, we might have different components in a sample, right? So the mobility of each of these species will be different, and that is what will define the speed of the analyte, right? uh, so based on these equations as well, in the background in answers, the mobility of the species will be determined, and hence the speed of the analyte will be determined, right? So this is an example of an EOF with electrophoresis, right? So this is a simple example where this is an inlet, this is an outlet, a particular length of this whole channel. These will be considered as walls, and the width of the channel is also defined, right? So what will we need for performing this simulation is certain material properties, viscosity, density, right? Charges on let's say certain components in our sample, and then we will also need, we'll specify some boundary conditions. Let's say the inlet voltage is certain 40 volt, there is a outlet voltage of 0 volts, and and also the concentration of at different inlets, which we are specifying, right? So when we are working with just a neutral EOF, right? So we can see how the sample is going to diffuse. So this is at t equal to 2.5 seconds, right? So after t equal to 0 is the time when we basically dropped the sample inside or we inserted the sample inside our channel, and and we are checking this, or this screenshot which we are seeing has been taken at t equal to 2.5 seconds. So at neutral EOF, which we are considering, so you would see, so these can be two components which you are seeing, maybe the green and the red one, right? And you can see that their distribution changes if we are changing the charges based on that, right? So this can help us understand for different analytes or different components in our sample how the channel is going to behave, or how the microfluidics or lab on chip device is going to behave. Um, yeah. So as I said, that dispersion will be one of the challenges which we will be facing in this case, or during our simulations for, or during any microfluidics device as well, right? So um, so if there is any reduction in the local analyte concentration, that can dilute analyte below the detection limit or reduce the separation efficiency. Now there can be different reasons for dispersion as well, right? So dispersion can occur due to diffusion. There can be an inherent diffusion which is the uh, causing the dispersion to be there. Then can be Joule heating, right? So Joule heating basically can also change the behavior of the flow. Then parabolic flow. So this is called Taylor dispersion. So when there is pressure-driven flow on polymer-based chips, we find parabolic flow. So parabolic flow, if I can help you understand, like whenever there is a channel, right? So if you see, let's say these are the walls of the tubes. Okay, I'm just drawing a 2D version of a, let's say, a cylinder as itself, a cylindrical channel, or it can be any type of channel. So let's say these are the walls. I'm just marking the walls here. So the assumption which we make in CFD is that the wall velocity is zero, and which is also coherent with what we observe in the physical world, right? So inherently, the fluid is going to form this kind of parabolic um, flow. So that is what can also cause a little bit of dispersion. Okay, and if the zeta potential is changing, that can cause some dispersion. Entrance effects can call, like when the sample just enters uh, the channel, that can cause something. And also the geometry. So if there are turns and bends inside our lab on chip device, which is very much possible, so that can also cause the dispersion, right? So let's look at a few effects, right? So if you see, um, so there is, if you see this part of this image, okay? So these small, if you can closely observe, there are small arrows which are there, okay? So, uh, so there is, in the left side, if you see, the zeta potential is, let's say, X, and you can see that um, uh, the flow is in certain way, like you see straight arrows being drawn here, right? So these are the velocity vectors of the flow which are there inside the channel. Now there is a step change of zeta potential right here, and if you see that in this particular location, a lot of dispersion might have happened, right? So this step change caused this dispersion. Now, what could be the causes of this? Sudden change can be protein absorption or desorption on the channel walls. So maybe protein got absorbed on this wall, and channel constructed from multiple materials. So let's say there is change in material. You had certain plastic or fiber which you were using, and then there is some change in the material from this particular point, then the zeta potential can change, right? So this could cause a step change, and this we can optimize, or we can understand with the simulation itself. So maybe doing a test for this one would have been really difficult, but doing a virtual experiment definitely will not be a challenge. So you can see, even the pressure basically changes. Like by definition, the delta P is zero, but if you see that there is a certain pressure variation also which is happening here because of variation in zeta potential, right? Because once the zeta potential changes, our velocity uh, or the flow properties are changing, right? The flow behavior is changing, and hence the pressure is also changing. Now, this is again an example of solute dispersion due to non constant zeta potential. So as I was saying, right, that parabolic flow behavior. So if you see that because of this variable zeta potential, these are the exactly same cases. Okay, we have not changed anything. If you see, the blue color is the lowest species concentration, and the red color is the highest species concentration, right? And we have not changed anything else apart from the zeta potential. So if we have a variable zeta potential, then we will again form this parabolic behavior which could cause dispersion. And in case of a constant zeta potential, we see a straight line which is, like a plug flow which is happening for this whole channel. So that will help us avoid the dispersion as well. Now in case of different dispersion which can happen, right? So it will start, let's say, at this location, but as we move forward, it might disperse a lot. And that variable zeta potential is going to reduce once the dispersion happens. So we will not be able to even measure it at a later point, right? So let's also look at what can be the geometric effects on solute dispersion, right? So um in case of if let's say we are mixing multiple streams, then that would require long channel lengths. Okay, so if we require long channel lengths and we are making lab on chip devices, then we have to have turns, right? We cannot make it like a straight channel. So we will have to introduce number of turns to maintain the smaller surface area of the chip. Okay, and um, yeah, so when we are talking about any turn, so at any turn, the path length is basically lowered, okay, and lower and the field strength is higher on the inner part of the turn, right? So this could increase the broadening of the flow. So we have seen that plug flow behavior like straight to the channel, right? But since there is a path length is low and the field strength is higher on the inner part of the turn, so that can change the flow behavior of the sample inside our channel. And this is where CFD can also help us a lot. CFD can help us test these geometric modifications, right? So we can understand based on the curvature or the radius of turn that what kind of effects will it have on dispersion, right? So uh, this was the initial U bend which we had. So this sample which you see on the left side, this has actually crossed this turn, and then we have taken the screenshot, right? So in the initial run, you can see it is very dispersed, right? We'll not be able to differentiate. Let's say if we have different like different components in this samples, but here you see a clear division after we have optimized the turn. So this kind of optimization, building physical prototypes for this kind of channel would have been a challenge as well, and not a very cost-effective method. But in case when we are using ANSYS, we can take the help of designing tools to just design this kind of channel inside ANSYS and then do a CFD simulation and understand what is the behavior of, right? Yes. So also from the dispensing perspective, we need to have a good dispensing protocol, okay, which can help us get the exact amount of sample fluid, okay, and it should be both repeatable and accurate also. So, typically we use gated walls and cross-channel injectors, so that we know what amount of sample volumes which will be inserted on a lab on chip, right? And there can be surface tension based approaches also, which can be used to generate a series of droplets. So we'll look at how CFD can help us in developing a dispensing protocol as well, right? So this is an example of a cross-channel injector, which will supply a certain amount of sample in the exact volume, right? So again, so you can see we can create this channel inside ANSYS itself, and this particular image which you see is from the CFD tool. So we have introduced the sample here. This is the sample loading stage. We have specified the boundary conditions as well here, right? So if you see at the second stage, we see that, the analyte is getting separated from our sample, and similar, so we will be able to accurately get a certain amount of sample on this on the injected end, right? And we also use gated valve. So this, what you see here, is the voltage distribution in this gated valve, and we will introduce the species or sample from this end of the valve, right? And in case of a gated wall, you see that this is actually at the this end of the spectrum which we are looking at. So by changing at different Q values, right, we can see a slight change in the analyte separation. We can see that the analyte is getting separated as well in this end. So T-junction for droplet generation is also a very efficient method for preparing monodispersed emulsions. Okay, so in this case, the droplet size will be controlled by adjusting the flow rate of the continuous and dispersed phases. Okay, and polymethyl methacrylate is a continuous phase, and water is the dispersed phase which we have used here. Okay, so this produces an oil in water emulsion, which can then be used for droplet generation, right? So this is a simple example of T junction where this is at time equal to, actually this is supposed to be a video, but I could not fetch it right now. I will try to find it and maybe send it across to everyone once you know after this presentation. So if you can see, so this kind of data can also be extracted from the CFD simulation. So we can analyze droplet volumes, which which we will be getting. Okay, because what we want is that every, after every certain interval, we want a certain volume of, let's say, our sample to be injected in a certain location, right? So this kind of graphs can be plotted in a quantitative sense. So on the y-axis, we have the mass fraction, and on the x-axis, we have time. So you see it peaked at a regular interval, and we will be able to understand, at what seconds will we get the particular drop from this particular T junction. So we can also talk about pre-concentration techniques, which increases the effective detection limit of the analytical system. And it can also facilitate the analysis of small sample volumes or large sample volumes with low initial concentration. So in a pre-concentration case, we will basically use a discontinuous buffer systems. Few examples can be a sample stacking or isotachophoresis, right? So if I talk about sample stacking, right? So sample ions which are there, they will stack at the interface between low and high conductivity, right? So we will define, this will be the initial sample location, and we'll have zones which high conductivity as well. And then this sample will be separated based on in the high conductivity zone based on the boundary conditions which we have specified as low and high voltage areas, right? So you can see the distribution of what we will have as a low and higher conductivity zones, right? So it will be a distribution. It is not going to be like a let's say a step improvement. Like if you see that for the conductivity, this is the conductivity here, and at the high conductivity zone, this will be the conductivity, and then we see the distribution of the analyte as well here, right? So as you remember, like this was the initial sample location, and as we go ahead in time, depending on the Q value, you see that there is some separation happening in this end. And if we decrease the value, again, the separation is decreased. And similarly, if we apply a negative Q value, it is again going to change the direction in which the separation is happening. So this kind of simulations can also be done using um, using CFD. So again, isotachophoresis also means a constant speed bands. Okay, so what that means is that all the bands will have the same speed at steady state. Uh, uh, in this case, the actually the analyte concentration is can actually affect the conductivity of the buffer solution, right? So in some cases where electrophoresis will not work, you know, isotachophoresis can work, right? So so if you see here, like we have this sample, right, at t equal to t0, where let's say we have just started observing the sample, right? And this is the trailing buffer solution, and this is the leading buffer solution. Now at t equal to, a higher value, and we go ahead in time, these samples will start separating into their components, and after a while they will be moving at the same speed, but they will be separated from each other in this solution. So this is an example of the CFD simulation which we have performed on the same thing, right? Depending on the mobility of the ion, we will see. So there are very small changes because again, this is a microfluidics channel, so you will not see huge separation or huge dispersion because we are working at a very small scale, right? But we can see, depending on the mobility of the ion, how the separation will be at the same time frame. So this was, both the images are taken at t equal to 0.001275 seconds, but a high mobility ion will lead to a higher separation as well, with the same, everything else remains the same, right? So as we would want to analyze different species and understand their concentrations, right? Detect different species after separating them. So you could also, apart from these quantitative data on the separation, you can get qualitative data also, and understand at different time points or time steps uh, what all species are we going to get, right? So these are different species which we are able to observe at the end of our channel, right? And again, we can also there is a self-correction mechanism which will also be there because of the change in potential values. Okay, so you can see that at different intervals which we are looking at different distance from the initial sample in uh, the location where we have introduced the sample, we will see different bands for different species as well for the voltage or even temperature values, right? So so mixing mechanism will be very limited because, as I said, it is going to be a laminar flow inside microfluidics channel. So there can be only two things which we can do: either diffusive mixing, which requires long channel length, and then chaotic mixing, which will need alteration in the channel geometry itself. So we might introduce certain baffles or certain obstructions to the flow so that we artificially make the flow turbulent, right? So these were, this is what I wanted to cover in today's session, where we spoke about, in general, where ANSYS has been used in the healthcare and medtech industry, and also focusing on lab-on-chip devices from the microfluidics application. So again, please feel free to we can have a chat on offline as well, and understand if you have a specific research interest where you would want to understand from any perspective, not only CFD, even FEA or high frequency electromagnetic simulation. We would be happy to connect on that.
Thank you, Ishan sir. If anyone have question, they can ask. Ishan sir, I think no one is raising the question. Uh, Ishan sir, are you there?
Yes, 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 Utkarsh sir.
I think no one has question, but I was uh, about to ask you one question. I am concerned about uh, is there any demonstration with you, or do you have ANSYS software right now in your laptop, or you can you show anything which can be model as a part of a channel, or if you can show any of a flow profile how to do those things, if it is possible, because see. Whatever you shown, it is really very interactive, very informative. But if you can show any of a dimension, single dimension, or the single channel, and how to do a simulation on it with ANSYS software, so it would be really appreciable. If you have the access right now, then only. Otherwise, it is okay.
It will be difficult, Utkarsh sir, right now. Okay. So what I can do is I can send you some example over email, so you can distribute it to others also in the call. And I think because we have some pre-recorded examples as well, so I think that could give a very good idea. And then I'm always available to discuss it further whenever required.
Okay, sir. Another question I have.
Mhm. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Actually, just I want to say that if you give some notes, it will be better for us. That how we can use the tanks.
Yeah, yeah,
Agreed, sir.
definitely.
Okay.
Agreed.
Ishan sir
Definitely.
will share this presentation as well, some of the videos as well for some of the teaching materials also. So, Ishan sir, I have another question. As you have said that microfluidic devices can be simulated on the ANSYS software. So, most of the microfluidic devices are not just for the, or we can say it is used for the different application. Say, for example, for the dust drug discovery, drug screening. Am I right? It is also used
Yes,
for
exactly.
tissue culture also. So for all the application, when we try to simulate any of a drug which is flowing inside the channels, fine. So again, those all drugs have the different concentration as well the different density. So is it possible that we can take the data of specified drug onto the ANSYS software, or is it possible that any ready-made tools are available, so we can select any of a drug and then we can simulate with that drug into the channel?
Okay, okay. Understood, sir. So
Yes.
there is an extensive material library which is available inside ANSYS. Okay, but I cannot, say that it will include all the, let's say, the drug components which are there, and it will be readily available. But in most cases, you will be either be able to find it, because we need basic properties in terms of density, viscosity, and those properties, right?
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
so those
Those
can
properties
be.
are different for different drugs, you know.
Yes, yes, yes. So, so to be honest with you, like all the drugs will not be, let's say, available inside ANSYS material library, but you could either find it in literature or also from people who are actually manufacturing it, because they must be doing testings on that.
Okay, okay. So manually we can do the things, na? If it is
Yes,
not available, then manually we can insert the viscosity as well as other parameters of the any of a fluid, whether it is a drug or other fluid, or whether it is a culture media.
exactly, sir. Exactly. Yeah, you've got it.
In
Yes.
that case, really it is very useful, I think. So one can do a very intense research on this. So thank you, sir. Thank you very much for sparing your time with us. We are all thankful to you. On behalf of all the participants, I want to thank you. If you can share the materials and the presentation, it will be really appreciated. Thank you, sir.
Definitely, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So we
everyone,
are
for
ending this.
joining.
Yes, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. We are ending
Thank you,
this
sir.
session. Yes. Okay, all participants are now leave the session as we are ended with the today's session. The feedback of this session will be shared in the WhatsApp group, uh, and we will meet tomorrow at 11 for the session for Professor Krishna Miyapuram. As schedule is already shared with you, you can leave now.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.